she has been delivered, she has been cured, because Blake Lively says she is no longer emo. She is no longer in emotional distress. And well, I know I told you guys something big was coming, but I didn't know it would be this. Let's get into it, shall we?
F around and find out. F around and find out. F around and find out. F around and find out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of F Around and Find Out. I'm your host, Elsie, and I'm not even going to lie to y'all. I am being held together by Vicks Vapor Rub and cough drops and hot tea. I'm literally, as I sit here, I have this mug that says, "Today's goal, keep the tiny humans alive, except we're keeping me alive." I do know where I picked it up from my child, obviously. But I knew if I didn't get this video done today, tomorrow I'm not gonna have a voice. I'm not gonna. It won't be worth listening to. I won't be worth listening to. So I'm pushing through to get you guys this because this is just too good, right? Great. But remember last week when I told you guys I just felt something was coming? Now I know somebody's already preparing to say you said last week was going to be big, not this week. But I have a technicality. Because Monday was a holiday, last week Monday, it was Memorial Day. And technically this letter that Blake's team sent, there's proof that it was written back in May. And then it was sent on June 1st. So technically I feel like my intuition of something big coming next week when I said that last week is still true. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. But I still believe I'm clairvoyant and I can see things. Anyway, Blake Lively seems to have received some type of magical cure, some type of magical medication, some type of magical deliverance that has cured her of her emotional distress. You know, the one that the smear campaign, and Justin inflicted on her from the set and throughout all of this. Yeah, it seems like she's cured right up. But why? Let's read this Variety article, which tells us something about it. And just be prepared, there's going to be a lot of cuts and edits because I can't finish a sentence without taking a break. So bear with me. As you can see through the screen right now, a girl is struggling to keep her eyes awake. My face is so puffy and my voice is on the verge of breaking at the end of every sentence. So if this episode is choppy and edited, ignore it. Just ignore it. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we all know emotional distress is one of the things that Blake Lively claims Justin Baldoni and us and the smear campaign and everything has put her through. So it's one of the things she had in her lawsuit. Well, you guys remember when we had that meeting with the judge? I'm saying we as if we were there. But back in March, I believe, where we talked about the AEO's attorney's eyes only for medical stuff, right? So the time has come where Brian Friedman and Justin Baldoni, that side of things, are like, well, we know you said you were going through emotional distress, and we love that for you, right? But we want to see some documentation. We want to see your therapist notes. We want to see something. We want you to sign your HIPAA waiver that allows us to get your therapist's notes about all the emotional distress that you went through. And as soon as they asked for that, it seems like the emotional distress cleared right up like a bad rash. It was just gone. But because Blake Lively is Blake Lively and she thinks she runs shit around here, she's like, well, and I'm putting this in layman's terms so everybody can understand. She's like, well, my emotional distress is gone now, so I don't want to sue you for it. But later, if it flares back up, I reserve the right to re-sue you for it. Where they do that at? Let's read this article, which there's so many contradicting articles, but the main goal is to not let the headlines get to you. Okay, that's why you come here, so I can break it down so these headlines don't trip you up. Variety's article says Blake Lively abandons claims against Justin Baldoni of infliction of emotional distress. Lively is attempting to withdraw her claims against Justin Baldoni of intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction of emotional distress. The move comes after Baldoni's legal team sought discovery that included her medical records in their efforts to defend Ed Enswood as director against her claims that she suffered severe emotional distress and pain, humiliation, embarrassment, belittlement, frustration, and mental anguish. God. That was a mouthful. Lively's attempt to withdraw the two claims surfaced in a filing Monday by Baldoni's attorney, who are seeking to compel the actress to sign a HIPAA release for access to therapy notes and other relevant information. Instead of complying with the medical RFPs, Miss Lively's counsel recently advised us in writing that Miss Lively is withdrawing. She said, let me back that ass up. Miss Lively is withdrawing her infliction of emotional distress claims, today's filing state. However, Miss Lively has refused the waiver party's reasonable request that the withdrawal of such claims be with prejudice. Be with prejudice means once you take it back and you walk it back and say you're cured, that cure better be freaking permanent. Don't trickle your ass back in here a couple months from now, a couple weeks from now, and be like, well, my emotional distress has flared up again. I want to see you again for it. So that's when people say with prejudice in court or without prejudice, that's what it means. So with prejudice is like, girl, is done. Without prejudice is like, you could double back. In other words, Miss Lively wants to simultaneously A, refuse to disclose the information and documents needed to disprove that she suffered any emotional distress and or that the waiver parties were the cause, and B, maintain the right to refile her IED claims at an unknown time in this or some other court after the discovery window has closed. If I knew they were going to explain it to you like that, I wouldn't have bothered. But I feel like my explanation was much better. I am so sorry. I'm going to have to pull the plug on this video. Jesus. Lively's lawyer, Ezra Hudson and Michael Gottlieb, called the filing a press stunt. Really? Is everything a press stunt? Like, to you guys, everything is a press stunt? You think he should have kept it under wraps? You think his team should have protected your client after she backed up a whole claim of emotional distress because she didn't want to pony up her therapy notes? Yeah, try that story with some kindergartners, not us. The Baldoni welfare strategy of filing retaliatory claims, there has to be a quota on the word retaliatory. There has to be, right? Like, there is no way they're gonna keep saying everything is in retaliation, right? The Baldoni welfare strategy of filing retaliatory claims has exposed them to the expensive new damage claims under California law, rendering certain of Miss Lively's original claims no longer necessary. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Lively continues to allege emotional distress as part of the numerous other claims in her lawsuit, such as SH and retaliation and massive additional compensatory damage on all her claims. It's exhausting. The court will now need to decide whether to compel Lively to turn over the information on her mental health, which she has sought to avoid, or dismiss the two claims with or without prejudice. It is standard procedure in this case alleging physical or emotional injury for the defense to access the plaintiff's medical records that would shine a light on the root and scope of alleged distress. What is unusual is for a plaintiff to abandon the claims midstream, given that it is well known heading into such a lawsuit that medical records will be an unpleasant but inevitable part of the discovery process. The filing addressed to Judge Lyman offers a window on a back and forth that appears to have played out between the lawyers for the dueling sides. It continues, Miss Lively cannot have it both ways. If Miss Lively wants to withdraw from her frivolous IED claims, the waiver parties are entitled to a dismissal with prejudice to ensure they would not be refiled. If Miss Lively is unwilling to stipulate to the dismissal of her IED claims with prejudice, then the waiver parties will continue to defend against them, and she must produce her medical information. Oh, God. And documents as set forth herein. The two emotional distress claims were key components of Lively's lawsuit against Baldoni, which she filed in federal court in December after he sued New York Times for defamation. Alleging she suffered physical and emotional injuries, Miss Lively has placed her physical and mental condition at issue and in turn must produce relevant information and documents, including psychiatric records, today's filing states. In other words, Miss Lively has waived any doctor-patient privilege. Pretty much, yes. The twists and turns in the saga, which now includes a 6 related lawsuit, have hit the docket quickly. Baldoni is also suing and being sued by his former publicist. What makes this headline funny is after Variety released this later in the day, here comes Deadline. Right? Blake Lively insists she is not dropping emotional distress claims against Justin Baldoni, despite what his lawyers say. And her lawyers seem to have said, again, I explained it to you. They're trying to say we're not dropping it, we're putting it to the side right now. We're shelving it right now because the emotional distress is just not that serious and we don't really need it right now. It's not necessary, is what her lawyer said. So we're just going to shelve that little thing over there and focus on the big stuff. Yeah, because we have evidence for that. We're going to focus on the big stuff. Yeah, because if you don't have evidence for emotional distress, you have evidence for SH? Okay. Like I told you, I'll wait. I'll sit right here like this. I'll wait for you at the door. At the door. She dropped the claims. Another one. Thank you. Blake Lively dropped another claim. Thank you. Blake Lively dropped another claim. Thank you. Till there are no more claims left to be dropped. So far, this Deadline article is the most useless one of all because it is so word salad. Headline is misleading. The article itself is just a bunch of word salad trying to pretty much say what I just told you. Blake's team is dropping the suit because Justin's team asked for evidence and she's saying she wants to bring it up again at another time. And this man Dominic took like 10 paragraphs to say that, and you could barely read. It was not properly punctuated. It was not properly it just was not properly written. Okay, so I wouldn't waste my time with this if you're looking for something to read. So this is where the email gets juicy, right? And it is hereby stipulated and agreed by and between the undersigned attorneys for the parties to the above captioned action that pursuant to federal rule blah, 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 and this court's inherent authority, plaintiff Blake Lively hereby voluntarily, say it with me, voluntarily withdraws and dismisses the 10th cause of action, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and the 11th cause of action, negligent infliction of emotional distress, asserted in her amended complaint, without prejudice, with each party to bear their own costs and fees associated with the foregoing dismissed claims, and without the withdrawal or dismissal of any other claims, counterclaims, or third-party claims asserted therein. Pretty much Blake Lively is saying she has the delusional nerve gut balls the size of Texas. And so she's like, you want my therapist notes? No. You want my therapist notes to prove I was not emotionally harmed? That's going to be a no for me. But what I can do for you is, how about whatever attorney fees, whatever billable hours my lawyers use to defend this part of the claims, how about I pay my lawyer's fees, you pay your lawyer's fees, oopsies, we go our separate ways on this claim and this claim only, but I want to RSVP. I reserve the right to double back whenever the hell I feel like it and say, yeah, I'm feeling all that emotional trauma yet again. So I would like to sue your ass again. How about that? You agree to that? Sign here. Thank you. Delusional. Sick in the head, Blake. And your lawyers? Are they okay? Gives us a little background and says, in her amended complaint, Ms. Lively claims that the Wayfair party's alleged misconduct severely impacted her physical, psychological, and emotional well-being. We covered that earlier. Moreover, Lively repeatedly alleges that she has suffered and continues to suffer substantial damages, including but not limited to severe emotional distress and pain, humiliation, embarrassment, belittlement, frustration, and mental anguish. We covered that earlier too. In addition to her claims for SH and retaliation, Ms. Lively's amended complaint of emotional distress and for negligent infliction of emotional distress, those are not little things you can just say, right? You have to be able to prove it. You need to, if you say like, I caused you physical harm, you need to be able to prove it. Like whether you went to the ER, you have an x-ray, something. The same way you said I caused you severe emotional distress, where is it? Blake Lively's refusal to disclose her medical and mental health information documents, given the IED claims the Wayfair party served Ms. Lively with the medical RFPs, which seek standard healthcare-related information from Ms. Lively that is routinely exchanged in cases involving claims for physical and emotional injury. Specifically, the medical RFPs seek the names and addresses of the medical and mental health care providers. They don't exist. It's two things, okay? It's two things. They don't exist. Either they don't exist. She never went to see a doctor. She never went to see a therapist. She never went to see anybody because she was never in any emotional stress. Or if they were to get their hands on her medical information, which I want to say has all been deemed AEO. So even if they did get their hands on the medical information, we wouldn't be able to see it, right? Bummer. But they would know. So can you imagine if Blake was like going to a therapist and talking about, like we were speculating in the beginning, she's so over-adjusted. Can you imagine if Blake has like ridiculous medical procedures, that we wouldn't be able to see because they would be deemed AEO, but she cannot afford for those to come out? What if she was telling her therapist wild stuff? Like perhaps she wanted that man, like I've been saying. Can you imagine if that's what she was telling her therapist? Oh my God. But again, I feel like it is absolutely ridiculous to think you are delusional enough and have the nerve enough to be like, yeah, I don't want to give you the evidence to prove what I'm saying. So we're gonna go ahead and drop it right now, but I reserve the right to pick it up later. Like, get out of my face completely with that. So Brian Freeman is asking the judge, like, hey, you can do two things here. You can go ahead and grant her wish. She can shut down this whole emotional distress portion of the lawsuit. We have no problem. But under no circumstances can you give her the right to come back and sue us for it again. Or she can give us the documents and we can keep it in the lawsuit. We would gladly keep it up, right? A lot of people are, bringing up the question, do you think there's a settlement? There's a settlement on the horizon. I think Rome wasn't built in a day. I think this is step one. It's a very big step. I feel like people are not making it as big of a deal as it needs to be. I think this is a huge step because if you were really traumatized, which I said in my last video that I posted, thank you guys for showing that video so much love, by the way. There was no trauma. There was no SH. There was no evidence of you going through any of this because your husband made a character mocking this man for being sweet, innocent, and all that stuff. If the first thing to go is something that could have been easily proven, it's safe to say the rest are going to fall right behind it. Now, do I think she's going to drop them next week or something like that? No, she's probably going to keep it till we get to trial. And I do think she thinks she's delusional enough to say, we're going to go to trial. And if I lose a trial, I'm going to appeal and say there's no way a jury could have been unbiased because the jury was polluted with all the media around it and everything. I don't think it's a matter of if she wants to settle. I think she 100% would like to settle. It's a matter of if Justin Baldoni would settle and what does the settlement look like? Because I think the only way he settles if it's coming with an apology and a full retraction from her side, which her ego, well, we know, is too big and would not do that. So I don't think we're heading for a settlement anytime soon. But this is a step. It's a big step. Like I told you guys, something big was coming. And I still feel like something else could be shaking out, but I don't overpromise, right? And not deliver. So we'll take this win. A win is a win. I'm going to go and recover. You guys will probably not see me for like 2 or 3 days. It will be a miracle if I can make another video again, because this video will probably end up being like 15 minutes. But please believe me when I say I am currently on 1 hour as far as like recording, because I'm having to stop and like catch my breath and cough. I'm going to try to go and recover. And just don't ask me for my medical information to prove I'm really sick. I am really sick. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if I'm doing a really good job at birth control and like not letting it come through my voice. But I thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Please make sure to leave a like, a share, a comment on your way out, and come back for the next one, whenever that is. Because again, it will be a miracle if I can make another video this week. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.